Hi. This is an RFL 3 and 60-ton heavy fire support and anti-air platform from the Battletech Inner Sphere Battle Lance box, and this video is about when sometimes paint schemes just do not go to plan. One of the most ubiquitous units, which can be found in the service of just about any successor state and within any given roster on tabletop, it features as a repose in numerous boxes since, such as this one from the Wolf's Dragoons Mercenary box, or also one within the Battletech Essentials box, available in generic retail stores like here. There is also a premium Rifleman miniature available on the Catalyst Game Labs web store, but I have yet to encounter one of these for sale in a bricks and mortar outlet. There is no image for the item on the page aside from a digital render, which could mean anything, and it costs $15. There is absolutely, utterly no way in that I'm about to drop more than what some people make an hour for something I can't even find a picture of, but okay, fair play. You can also find online instances such as this one from creator Matt Mason on My Mini Factory, who's a fairly popular outlet for sourcing STLs for 3D printed mech frames that you can fire and forget with your device, and then with some boiling, trimming, and peeling of print supports have something comparable to what Catalyst puts out. Each and every one of these sculpts of the Venerable mech are a product entirely sufficient and valid for use in your private tabletop army. You can also use a Jaeger mech. Okay, holy shit, I didn't actually. But I like this one, the original production from the initial line of Inner Sphere Lance packs as God intended. I will now utilize random bullshit to make this particular mold more presentable for painting in today's video. Something to note is that even as an older model, the fins of its active radar system are unlike some of the newer ones in the sense that they don't have the erectile dysfunction deal going on, and its prominent guns are, like me, actually very straight to the surprise of most people.
Oh no.
There's also some weird indiscrepancies, like how the one from the Dragoons box has wider intake vents on the front but narrower ankles. I think mechs, especially ones that primarily serve as heavy weapons platforms with big autocannon, should have thick and heavy duty legs. I cannot take skinny mechs like the Centurion seriously. The cleaning on this Rifleman was nothing short of grueling. I say with no exaggeration, this mech almost certainly has more mold lines and weird artifacting than any other I've seen, and it took me longer than any mech I'd have to clean ever. Mold flashes here, stubs from injection points there, weird flakes of plastic just peeling off the interior of this torso compartment here. Every time I felt like I got done with this mech, I found another issue I had to manually clean up, reinforcing that rule number one of model cleaning and assembly is that
Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
this can be an issue of these older and earlier CGL sculpts, with newer models improving every day. As a matter of fact, if we look at this Jaeger mech, I'm not saying it's good. Okay, look, I'm just saying, look at it. Now, with my 200 milliliter jar of Vallejo Earth Texture Acrylic Desert Sand, I utilize this silicone brush to gently, evenly spread some texture over the base, because people who don't base their models are the exact same people who eat the top of the cupcake with frosting and throw the rest away. With my mech model now looking like this, I whip out the cardboard box I use as a makeshift overspray shield, clip this into my Citadel paint handle, equip my hand condom, and hook up the quick release air hose to my Paige TG Talon gravity fed airbrush. Yeah, this is why bitches don't want me. I mean, look, it's frankly embarrassing. I can't even get that shit in the hole. This is foreshadowing for what is to come, for in the remainder of this video, nothing goes wrong. The paint scheme we're using today is gonna end up taking a lot of different acrylics. I mean, a lot. 6 regular, 4 metallics, and 6 washes. You're probably like, where the hell is he gonna use purple wash? Well, watch the fucking video. Shit heel, maybe you'll see the point is this is a very product intensive recipe, and I am choosing to utilize all Army Painter products for the colors today because of how accessible they are. Starting putting the paint color triad system to work with Prarie Ochre, Wasteland Clay, and Barren Dune from the Ochres and Tans grouping of the Army Painter Fanatic 2.0 lineup. Establishing a foundation with Prarie Ochre as our deepest color, the idea of this scheme is that we're going to, okay, wait, what is this? Why is it, okay, maybe it's clogged. I'll just sound it with a metal probe. It should work, no. Okay. No, it's tying itself into a knot or some shit. I thought this was paint. This is silly string. Does anyone else think this looks like this looks like dog shit? This looks like a dog shitting or something. Like, we are going to build up a dark base of muddy turf, simulating perhaps the peat of a highland environment, or else brownish fade of dying winter foliage. It is roughly at this bit that I realized that unlike what the hex code would have you believe on the tag of the bottle, this is neither the ochre nor prairie color I wanted. I, a fool, thought this could be another woodland color scheme for the camo spec series. Instead, this is fucking yellow. The idea of this scheme is that we are going to build up a dark base of arid sand, perhaps resembling the clay and mud of a savanna environment. And yes, even though it is yellow, it does actually coat and cover quite well. Good job, Army Painter, even though your paint looks like dehydrated cat shit. One of the problems I'm going to have making this upload is that my phone, which I film all my footage on, autofocuses, exposes, and white balances without any input from myself, not much of which you can change. Unfortunately, because of the pigmentation, if the background is off, this mech just doesn't look on camera like it does in real life, and I'm doing my best to color correct what it should be in post, but like, I'm just trying. Now breaking out our Wasteland clay, selected as the mid-tone of this scheme. This will, through a zenithal highlight from the top vector of our model, be the main body color of the war machine. Despite being 2 brackets apart of the scale, this one is so close to the Prarie ochre that I had at one point to spritz some onto my glove to make sure it was even spraying because I couldn't tell the difference. But with correct lighting, you can kind of tell that there is a subtle highlight going on. A reoccurring theme of this episode is going to be that sometimes things just don't work out in painting, art, and by extension, life at large. This was intended to be a follow-up sequel to the last camo specs video I did for the Clint, which I would like to make into a series, with that being an alpine woodland, and this being an autumn or arid woodland. But much like the plans I had for the rest of my life, that is completely and utterly down the shitter. This is the point I realized that indeed the barrel of my right arm AC5 is not aligned with the muzzle brake at the end. If you ever have a Battletech model where this is an issue, just take a freshly heated, not quite boiling cup of water and just gently dip the part in there and very lightly bend it back into place. At this point, I bust out the painting handle, napkin, and Army Painter Warpaint Fanatic 2.0's new sepia tone. It is a very nice medium reddish brown, which in use does an excellent job at highlighting. You can see that when applied to panels, it really brings out the contrast within the recesses and areas of the left leg. However, problematically, I do not like the fact that my mech, which is ideally intended to blend into a forest, is starting to look more and more like a school bus. This allowing it to dry in time and potentially look like this forever, I wet my brush and wash and soak up most of it. Unfortunately, you see here I begin to scratch off paint down to the plastic. It wouldn't happen if you used a primer. Fuck off, no one. I then run my mech under the tap with cold water off screen to rinse the rest. Allowing it to dry, I go back one step and apply what I forgot to earlier, Vallejo 100% acrylic resin gloss varnish with my airbrush. I then use the tried, true, and triumphantly old faithful Army Painter strong tone. A dark, earthy brown which will much better serve to convey an idea that this mech is camouflaged for some setting rather than trying out for conventional and aerospace fighter lawn dart target practice. The Rifleman requires little introduction, and there's frankly better people than I making better videos than mine about it. However, it is worth noting that this is indeed one of the probably 3 most ubiquitous heavies you can find in the setting, purpose-built by Kalon Industries all the way back in 2505, which in Battletech terms is like comparable to Warhammer's Age of Darkness or Terran Reunification War. It's very old. It still features all the way up to late Secession Wars and early Clan Invasion settings, entirely unmodified from its original design of dual over-under Imperator A general-purpose autocannons and Magnum Mark III heavy lasers, powered by a Pitband 240 power plant built into its Kalon Type 4 chassis. But more than even its comprehensible weapons array, the targeting system and computational suite that's found inside of a Rifleman is one of the single most well-developed and advanced applications even by modern standards, and makes this albeit low-armored second-line support asset one of the single most dangerous threats to anything above the horizon. It's not a mech you want as a solo fighter, it's not even a mech you want as a brawler, but a competent Rifleman with a screening element to keep lighter flankers away from its soft rear arc is going to be a real problem to anything under 75 tons in the battlefield, capable of using both the systems in its long-range array up to 15 hexes out on tabletop. The drying time lapse, I didn't lock down the arm tight enough, so it fell asleep on me. I'm sorry, guys, my bad. If the drying time lapse is your favorite part of the video, I'm sorry. Yeah, so anyways, it's glossy and I can't tell what I'm looking at, so I hit it with the AK Interactive number 183 Ultra Matte Varnish, which is on its last leg. I have milked this thing dry. It's kind of hard to tell what's happening here. I'll move on. Finally going straight for the pop with our highlight color Barren. Dune, a little on the palette, less on the brush, and most on the towel. Now, gently, lightly feathering those edges to get that perfect highlight pop of all the raised details. My stupid ass went to Hobby Lobby and saw these stupid foam stick applicators and was like, oh yeah, I could use those for sponging paint. These are No, they're not. The idea was to use a combination of the mid-tone and highlight to attempt to make stripes across the mech like a mock camo pattern, but I've tried with washes, I've tried with sponges, with normal brushes, it never works. I realize eventually that what I am doing looks ass, so I pivot and use the regular rubbish bit of foam, which you can visibly see has a much lower grain and consequently more defined spatter pattern, but too little too late. It's shit. I try to scratch most of it off with my brush and move on. I will use this Fanatic 2.0 Deep Gray, the darkest next to black in its category, and with minimal thinning, leverage its excellent coverage through brush application to cover most of my sins on the leg here, as well as the bracing reinforcing the cockpit canopy, these joint interiors from the hip, and of course the long guns, some little greebly bits which may be rangefinders or IR laser modules, the rear cannon assemblies, and the fins on his radar dish. Following up with that, I am going to use Company Gray, which I couldn't be asked to thin, to fill 2 of the 4 stripes on the radar dish, as well as 2 triangles on the backward face of the mech. This will be compounded by an equally unthinned pure red from the cool reds category. Filling the other 2 stripes on the radar dish, which, fun fact, according to writer Michael Stackpole at the start of the Warrior trilogy, actually spins, but you always see it in the same position, and it's not even symmetrical on some models that you can find. They treat it like it's a spoiler on a race car or something. By filling in these triangular details on the back, you almost convey a caution stripe aesthetic, which is pretty cool actually. I like to find details in a model and repurpose it with alternative paint. I get 2 more sets of stripes above the breeches of both autocannons and move on. Time for metallics, our first being Warpaints Fanatic Metallic Plate Mail Metal, which is like a dark steel I suppose. Neither of my cheap makeup brushes are used for metallics. To avoid ruining them and contaminating them with endless glitter, I instead utilize this old chisel tip brush to once again dry brush the barrels of our autocannons and lasers. This gives the appearance that the heat buildup of the weapons has begun to cook off the matte paint coating that most metallic components on camouflaged field gear usually have, at least initially. I am doing this all because commenter at Irish in Tennessee Z9W asks, my favorite make is the Rifleman, looking for ideas to give the barrels a burnt look, as in well used. What was that? Are you offended? So like, if you were like an Irish person, would you be offended? Well, Mr. Irish, I also really like the Rifleman, and I use your comments as an excuse to make this video. By starting with a matte gray or black, you can heavily dry brush with an intermediate metallic, and then using a bright metallic such as Army Painter Fanatic Metallics Mithril, use a second lighter dry brush to accomplish a serviceable weathered effect with no fancy airbrush to speak of. Before I do more, I also use Mithril to coat all the mini heat sinks which attempt to accommodate the high temperature buildup this mech suffers with engaging with sustained fire. There is a lot of them. I also get the autocannon breeches because that's necessary, and of course the torso point defense medium lasers. I then grab a third metallic Fanatic Metallic True Copper, the only Army Painter metallic I actually like as far as coverage goes. The other 2 have been quite thin for my taste. This gets the cockpit canopy. At this point I've resigned myself to the idea that this guy is going to be spending his time on garrison duty in a hot sandy desert environment and is going to need a well polarized UV protective finish to keep the sun off. Then highlighted with the Army Painter Warpaints Air Metallics Greedy Gold. My store didn't have regular gold, so I just make do with what I have. Now I can continue my work on the autocannons by utilizing the actual GOAT Army Painter Fanatic Dark Tone Wash, an oily, grimy black wash which serves to make our cannons, heatsinks, and canopy as well as gray elements appear weathered, worn, and well defined. I also heavily thin it and use just a little to accent the white and red caution markings I've marked out already. Our mech looks like this. I come back with Mithril and dry brush just slightly over the now darkened autocannons, just at the very tip of each muzzle brake where the heat and wear is going to be the strongest. I am in our final stretch. You you are now going to see why I said that I was using 6 washes, because with the remaining 4, I will now do heat effects on the large lasers. 2 are Army Painter Warpaint Fanatic 2.0 series blue tone and orange tone washes, but the other 2 are the old, venerable, and reliable Army Painter Quick Shade red tone and purple tone washes from the retro era of like 2 months ago. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to the game store and dropping $5 every time I want to do a color scheme with a new paint. No! Starting with blue tone on the very tip of the lasers, we're conveying the effect which is observable upon metallic surfaces when exposed to extreme heat. Google says that this is because of oxides, acetates, and carbons present within the metal. Moving on to purple tone immediately adjacent to the guns, these evidently react as the metal is heated and undergoes hardening with exposure to extreme temperatures. Blowtorches, car exhausts, and melta-guns are all examples of real-world objects which exhibit this effect. I now use red tone after the purple. We are making a spectrum here. Apparently, engineers can actually gauge the exact hardness of a surface based off of what metal and color value it exhibits. Finally, with orange tone, we use it the most furthest back and for the longest streak. If you need to go back and blend these, just wet your brush and kind of dabble onto the middle areas. It's very small and easy to correct. And now your heat exposed barrels will look like this. I considered doing this on the autocannons as well too, but I figured lasers were enough. At this point, if you want to do energy effects, it is worth noting that Magna Mark IIIs are green based off their description from usage on a katana mech. I don't, because at this point it's literally 4 in the morning. I give it one off-camera matte clear coat, and finally all we have to do left is to look at it. And it looks fire. I like it. It looks like the same color as Freddy fucking Fazbear. So I actually changed the background to a different box, and for some reason it gets it right here. This is what it looks like, and it looks good. A lot of shit went wrong with this mech, but I pulled a product. Not the product that I wanted, mind you, but a product though, and just like when my parents had me, even if it's not what was wanted, it is indeed what was got. Sometimes you mess up, but that's no reason to quit ever. I hope you like the mech. I hope that this helps Irish from Battlefield 4 or you with the miniature painting journey. Be sure to leave any questions that you have, and while I can't promise that every Tom, Dick, and Harry Dick gets a video just because they got a question, I will reply with what I know if I see it, but only if you like the video. And as always, I will see you in the next one. This has been... I don't have a name for this series. This isn't even an actual series. This has been a shit show. That's what it's been. Like, holy fuck.